May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer. Today we celebrate, if you have not figured out, Transfiguration Sunday, the day Jesus, Peter, James, and John went atop the mountain. On that day, Jesus, flanked by Elijah and Moses, virtually transformed into a radiant being, confirming and demonstrating his divine, otherworldly status. Now, Vine's concise dictionary defines transfiguration as being changed into another form, or the Oxford Language Dictionary reports that transfiguration is a complete change of form or appearance into a more beautiful or spiritual state. Now, we could explore this story and consider the impact of this event on the disciples as they moved forward with Jesus. Or we could consider how you are being transformed by God in this life. We could even consider and delve into the importance of this mountaintop experience and the significance of Elijah and Moses in this scene. Instead, I want to turn this story around, and I want us to consider ourselves part of the transforming actors in this world. I want us to recognize the agency that we have to make things different in this world. Because like Jesus' transfiguration in this story affects the disciples, so too should our continual transformation into Christians change the world around us. Yes. Does God work on us as individuals? Absolutely. But God also works on us for the purpose of inciting change in the wider world. Anthropologist Margaret Mead once said, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has." It seems God knows this and is working on us all one by one and encouraging us to create a community of hope. In fact, a study by the University of Pennsylvania reports that widespread cultural change in a community requires only 25% buy-in. That is, only 25 of 100 people make a change. Generally, the other 75 will soon follow. It is said that even 2 people in a church can change the community, the ethos of a church. The transformation or transfiguration takes far less effort than one might imagine. You don't need to actually convince 100% of the people. Just 25 out of 100 or 2.5 out of 10, and they will bring the rest along. Perhaps we can postulate that this is why Jesus brought only 3 of the 12 disciples up on this mountain. Regardless, what I want you to consider today is the idea that God, who is indeed transforming you even as you sit here in this moment, is also asking you to be the transformer. Specifically, I want to talk about this in the realm of what we are going to call new media. Angela Gorrell, professor and theologian, defines new media in her book Always On as ways in which we are communicating and getting information that is not the old media, i.e. the things like newspapers or television or radio or traditional books. New media is a wide term that is ever morphing and includes such things as social media, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, but it also includes your Kindles, the internet itself, Google Maps, online shopping, podcasts, online streaming, interactive commercials, even texting and emailing. Many of you, I suspect, have thought about how the new media landscape is affecting and transforming us. But I wonder, how many of you have considered how how we might transform the new media landscape. How many of you have considered how you might influence the direction and content of new media for the good of all? I mean, let's be honest. There's a lot to complain about new media. And in fact, I'm going to ask you that right now, because I know you've thought about this. What do you see as the problem of new media? What are the problems of new media? Christine?
It's almost impossible to turn it off.
Oh, yes, it is hard to separate, and it's been planned that way. You know that, right? What other problems do you see with new media?
Bias and listening only to the news you want to hear.
Right. Well, bias, listening to the news you only want to hear, but that infers you have a choice. The algorithms sometimes make that choice for you, and if it thinks you're thinking a certain way, it just keeps feeding it, and then you think it's the only thing that's out there. Yes.
It's an easy way for cowards to start bullying people.
Yes, well, the anonymity allows us to go to our baser instincts, right? It allows us to be downright mean and rude and hurtful and bullying. Absolutely. And it can make the other person feel super alone, because suddenly the bully does it, and then 10,000 people join in. People you don't even know, right? Yes, absolutely. What other problems do we have?
There's more negative than there is positive around, and more sad things than there is positive about them.
Sometimes it feels like there's a lot of negative coming at you. Absolutely, Gloria. It can feel like a lot of negative.
Well, there were only 24 hours a day.
Ooh.
So some of it can be spent on media, or it can be interpersonal contact, actual contact with people. So it seems to take the place of that.
Well, right. So I think that's a very good point. The bowl is only so big of our life. And unfortunately, social media is created to fill that bowl, to take every ounce of it. That's absolutely true. And Lori, you jump to my next section, which keep that in mind, is that it's our choice, which part we are going to feed. Heidi.
Parents can't always control what their children see.
Oh, yes. As a mama myself, mine are older now, but boy, do I feel for you guys, you parents, where my husband used to say it this way: you would never invite a stranger in your house, and yet the media is that stranger right there. And I know you guys don't understand that yet, but it is a challenge and it is heartrending. I thought I saw a hand over this way. Yeah, David.
The influence of artificial intelligence.
Ooh.
And the new generations of microbots and what that'll do for us and against us.
Well, right. And that's another good pivot point. Exactly. We are entering a time where what we used to think, if you saw it, it was real and it was true, right? And now, thanks to some of the AI-generated stuff, it isn't. It looks real. It looks really real. And yet, it's not. Now, I'll tell you some of the things that I thought of, and some of you already said them, but it's a time suck. Like Lori said, it can be depressing. It can literally change your internal emotions. It's isolating. Now, not all kids would agree with that because they play with people all over the world, but it can feel isolating. It's easily misconstrued. It's easily tampered with. It can lead you down inappropriate rabbit holes. It becomes its own addiction. It fabricates truth and makes lies seem real, and it's used for anonymous bullying. Absolutely. But there are also some great things about new media. Yeah.
GoFundMe and different fundraisers like that.
Right, it can bring awareness, and not just awareness, but actually people that can support and help and build, absolutely, in a way that was never possible before. Janice, you got to come meet me halfway.
It allows you to connect with family members from all over the world instead of being able to, not connect with them at all.
Well, right. It allows us to stay connected with other people that we would have otherwise long since lost contact with. And in fact, one of the things I love about that is, like, when I see you today, I could say, wow, I saw that your son got Eagle because it came up on my web feed. And we have something automatic to talk about, right? So it can foster connection. What other positives do we have?
It allows us educational resources we may not have, like Babbel or learning a new language or finding a recipe, those types of things.
Yes, it has really unhinged the educational opportunities in ways that we never thought of. We can literally right now go to a Yale theology course from right here. Absolutely, and you're really involved in Rotary, and so you can attend conferences without getting on a plane. Although, next time you go to Sydney, I'm joining you on the plane.
I'll be in Singapore in May.
Oh, May. Sorry, guys. No. Who else has a positive about the internet? Don't all jump in at once. Well, I would tell you, for me, and I concur with everything you've said, I think it really helps with connection. I think it really helps with information. And if you're willing to, you can confirm or deny facts if you know. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I remember taking library skills when I was young, and part of that was learning what was a reliable source and what wasn't. I think that class needs to be reinvigorated. But I think it also allows collaboration and creativity in ways that weren't even possible. And lately in the AI area, I am really appreciating pro writing that helps fix some of my writing errors. It's like having my 6th grade English teacher in my house. And it doesn't write in red, which is great. Anyway, the reality is this: new media is a tool which has the capacity to do both good and evil. And we have to recognize, though, that for the most part, it has been created not as a neutral agent in our life. Now, there are some programs which clearly are meant for the betterment of humanity, but much of what is available in new media is a way to monetize and commercialize us. This is what we have to recognize and take control of. We need to stop letting it form us and commodify us. Instead, proactively, we have to form and use it. I was just blessed by finishing a 4-week class with Angela Gorrell, who I was just quoting you from. And during this course, she asked us how we can become the change agents of this newly developing universe. And like I frequently ask you about bringing your Sunday faith out into the world on Tuesday, she asked us to bring our faith into the online new media landscape. She envisions the power that we have to transform and transfigure its development for the good of society and not the harm it has the potential to perpetrate. Now, Professor Gorrell, nor I, nor God, I suppose, is asking or suggesting that you become a New Age televangelist, hitting people over the head with Scripture and declaring your or our righteousness. In fact, this may be the very thing that you have to work against online. Instead, the suggestion is to bring the virtues of your faith into the new media landscape when you are online. Now, I want you to think for a minute. I know this is asking a lot. We thought about the bad and we thought about the good, but now I'm asking you to think about being the transformer. What can you do? What might you do online or in any of these new media landscapes that might begin to transform the world? How can you do it differently? Some of them you may already do. So maybe you're just sharing something you do. Thank you for being brave.
This is not where you're going with this, I'm sure, but you can opt out.
Yes,
Yeah,
but
you know?
that is.
Yeah.
I mean, that is. That's not the whole message, right? No. So, the end of the story is don't go online. No. Mm-hmm. That is something that you can and should do, not just opting out of maybe particular pages that you find offensive, but maybe taking a break, a Sabbath from technology, wild things like that, to leave space, like Lori said, right, for other parts of your life. Yes. What else might you do? Oh, excellent. I'm going to jump behind you first and then back. Pass it along there.
Send positive messages out there.
Yes, yes. That is one of the things that Angela Gorrell said. I mean, I know you guys have heard of like doom scrolling, getting every negative thing going past you. And she said, just change the way you go at it. Because doom scrolling actually depresses your own system. It changes your mental capacity. It makes things dark and ugly. But if you go on for the opposite, if you go on to say, Christine, I'm so excited, how did that goat get on that table, right? Like, tell me more. That changes, it's a real story. Ask her. I'm not kidding you. There was a goat on a table. Ask more. Anyway, and I'll add to that, well, yeah, you have to ask Christine later about it. But exactly, interaction, positive interaction can make all the difference for you and for that poor kid that was getting bullied. If you're the one person that says, this is not nice, stop, right? Which goes to your first word, and I said you're being brave. Sometimes we have to be brave. Did you still have something?
Well, this is similar to what Christine said, but for me as a mom, even though my kid is older, sharing good things that are happening for kids so that other parents who may not be as connected to the community know about.
Yeah.
Right? Like Free Fun Fridays is a big example. I'm the first one to share that schedule with everybody.
Yes.
Share the good.
That's right. Take the time to put the good. If we don't like all the bad on the internet, let's work together to put some of the good on it. Absolutely. And sometimes that's even sharing a particular web page. I find it actually comical when people are like, oh, it's so negative on the internet. I'm like, not on my feed. But that's because of those algorithms. I keep seeking out the good and more comes to me. Are there any other thoughts of what we can do? Here are some thoughts that I wanted to share with you. Lean in with curiosity. Ask a question, especially if it's someone that's saying something that is just appalling to you, because you can either start a fight or you can start a conversation. You can ask questions. You can post positive and authentic posts. You can stop scrolling and interact, as Christine said. You can respond to suffering. You can let them know that you're thinking of them. I mean, one of this church's biggest areas of work lately has been prayer, letting them know that you're praying for them. I can't tell you the number of people that just appreciate that alone. Model rest from tech. And I've actually learned how to use my do not disturb except for phone calls, or turned off the sound when I'm in meetings, usually, if I remember. And if you don't know how to do that, though, ask. Because sometimes people don't even know that possibility is on your phone, because trust me, they don't want you to know it. But yeah, taking control of that and knowing how to do it. We have people here, probably the youngsters, could show us where that do not disturb button is on every single phone. Let's use them. Lift up people with encouraging words. Now this one's going to sound funny, but I bet you many of us that are online are guilty of it. And this is a good one for you kiddos too. Don't friend or stay connected with people. Your only purpose is to be angry or compare yourself with them. Hold and teach boundaries. And send notes and emails and texts to all those family members that Janice was talking about and to other friends. Not just when Facebook says, oh, it's their birthday. But just, hey, I was thinking of you today. Try to de-escalate an argument. Encourage people to corroborate what they are saying is true and correct, and do so yourself. Just because it's online doesn't mean it's true and correct. I mean, that was true in old media. I had an article published in the paper a couple weeks ago, except I didn't write it. And so hopefully you all knew that because it said I was Methodist. But, you know, mistakes happen, so corroborate, right? Corroborate and make sure what you're passing on is true and right and correct. And to come from our own faith background, take a planned Sabbath, because those new media things really change our brains and our hearts. In Philippians 4:8, we hear, finally, siblings, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent and praiseworthy, think about these things. Whatever you have learned or received from me, this is Paul speaking, or seen in me, put it into practice, and the God of peace will be with you. And this is not just true of our physical day-to-day life, but absolutely a part of our online existence as well. Sadly, the new media landscape easily and purposely can draw us from the peace of God. And so we have to consciously connect with it in a more deliberate way so that if it changes us, we are changed for the better, because it's going to change us. So how is it going to change us? How are we going to deliberately decide how it's going to change it? And so that we might also transform it in all its forms for the betterment of others. I do affirm that there are many ways this church uses the new media landscape for good. We've pivoted to digital bulletins and reduced our waste and preserved our trees. We use screens to stimulate those who are not just auditory learners. We currently, even in this moment, are online with peoples in their pews at home, making accessible for them what would not otherwise be accessible. Hello, online. I think, Bev, you're with us today. We post portions of the service later on YouTube and Facebook and SoundCloud so that people who are searching might find the voice of a mainline church, letting them know they are loved, and you have no idea how important that is. Life-savingly important that they know that not everyone follows the God that some of these churches say is God's word. We also use our email newsletter to gather and accomplish our mission work, like our Meals for Dismiss. That's how we gather together to get the food to bring to the place. On Tuesdays, we post asking if people have prayers, and while there's only, 4 of us in the room, we welcome you all anytime, we are often drawing in tons of prayers from other people that just post online. And you all see, if you're on Facebook with me, we do it on the church and on my own, and I encourage you all to do it. Post on your own, who can I pray for today? And people send me messages, they post on Facebook, and I respond to every single one of them. And then they become our friends because they know you all are praying for them. And a simple and funny one that happened recently is Pastor Karen and Pastor Kathy and I created your Lenten surprise that you'll get next week. And I took a picture of it and I posted it on Instagram. And we now have 3 other churches who then took that plan, I went to Vistaprint, got it over to theirs, and they're now using the same thing that we created. And so new media landscape has so many opportunities that we might not have otherwise. New media doesn't have to be bad if we set limits personally, if we engage with it through positive ways, and if we're brave enough to speak up and out when we see it being used unscrupulously. I would suspect that it is fairly rare that most of us ask these questions. How does technology help us to love God and love others? How does technology help us to love God and love others? Or conversely, how is technology getting in the way of me loving God or loving others? Now here's a crazy one. How is the use of technology making me feel? When I get off of scrolling, how am I feeling? Or if I get off of my emails that seem to get longer every day, how am I feeling? And if the answer is not good, why aren't you changing it? Why are you continuing that behavior? And of course, the oldie but goodie, which takes a little bit of stretch, but it's a good one always. What would Jesus do in this situation? Transfiguration and transformation doesn't always have to occur on a hill somewhere out there. It isn't only restricted to the past. It doesn't always have to occur in epic proportions with prophet visitors and angels singing. With God's help and with your willingness, we can together transform the world as it is and the world as it is coming through what may seemingly seem like small, insignificant steps. Through small changes, the world can be changed. Indeed, right? Margaret Mead said, that's the only thing that ever has. So may we be brave enough to infuse our faith, our morals, our virtue into this new media landscape, that it too may become a part of the divine. Amen.